Hello, I'm Garner Mayor Ronnie Williams. Welcome to another episode of the show that we call Great People in Garner. We're honored to have with us today Eddie Gray, coach of the Garner Trojan boys varsity basketball team, the 2015 Class 4A state champion. Coach Gray is also a longtime social studies teacher at Garner Magnet High School. Coach Gray, congratulations and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It's great to have you here, and very proud of what this team was able to accomplish, and once again, very proud to be a part of this community and this school system for all these many years.
We're going to talk about those years. How does it feel to reach the mountaintop after all these years? You have reached the mountaintop.
I don't know about reaching the mountaintop. I know there was a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into this championship, and one of the things that I'd like to do is give credit to all the other teams. I've coached the varsity for 28 years, and there were a lot of fine teams that came through this program and a lot of dedicated assistant coaches, and as far as I'm concerned, they all were responsible for us finally winning a state title.
Everybody played a part.
They certainly did. It was a thing that was a ongoing project. Every coach in the state of North Carolina wants to win a state championship. We were just fortunate enough to have a group of kids that were dedicated enough to play the kind of basketball you needed to win, and we also had some things go our way. And I guarantee you most coaches that have won a state championship will tell you the same thing.
He rode the other day. 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 Who's he going to be this time? Who's he going to be? That's what's got us here. And there's somebody in this room is going to do something extraordinary tonight. I don't know who's going to be. It ain't going to be one of the 5 starters, is it? I don't know who's going to be. Somebody's going to do something extraordinary. Go back to what Coach Stewart said yesterday. You believe it, you can see it, you achieve it. I'm getting ready to now achieve something that ain't never been done in the history of the school. And that's winning the first state championship in men's basketball.
You're a 1970 graduate of Garner High School. You taught social studies at the school since 1977, and you've been coaching sports since 78. Are they the right years? Close enough.
That's correct.
What are the transformations that you've seen occur at the school beginning with your time as a student?
Well, one of the transformations is that the first time I walked across this gym floor, it was dirt. They hadn't put the floor down, and the building was under construction, and that was in 1968. In fact, the school play had to be taken over to the old school at Powell Drive because the auditorium wasn't done, and they were actually constructing the gym my junior year, and so I've seen so to speak, the school literally being built from the ground up. So that's one of the unique things about my career is not only I was here as a student and played on the first integrated football team, which was a great experience, and then got a chance to come back and teach here for 38 years. So I've grown old with the building, Mayor. I've just grown old with the building.
You've withheld well. You've done well. Eddie, your life was part of the life that you lived was part of the civil rights movement, integration, segregation. Right. How did you cope with that?
Well, I was very fortunate that I grew up in a household where my grandmother taught me not to be prejudiced. My grandmother was actually a refugee from Madrid, Spain, who had to flee Franco when the fascists took over Spain. They lost everything they had. And she had a great influence on my thinking when I was growing up. So I can remember when she lived in Raleigh, we would go and eat at the S&W. I think it was either S&W or K&W. It was downtown Raleigh. And we had a black waiter that would always wait on us. And my grandmother was always real polite to him, but yet he couldn't eat with us. And I mean, we used to always go to movies, and I saw, you know, how the whole city was segregated. I have memories of going to Hudson Belt and seeing the colored water fountain and the white water fountain. In fact, I drank out of the color water fountain one time because I thought it might be flavored. But my grandmama didn't tell me not to do that. And then she would take me on bus trips, and I'd see segregated bus. So I grew up seeing that. So when I got to be a junior in high school, this school got created, and everybody's seen the movie Remember the Titans, but for me it's Remember the Trojans. And what we did, and I think it was by accident, is instead of closing the black schools and forcing the black community to go to the white schools, we built this place. So Garner consolidated, and Garner High School became Garner Senior High School. So to me, this school was created in 1968. And Coach Sherrill Johnson was the first football coach. So he comes up with this idea that we're going to have a camp. And we went to Camp Durant, and the black players and the white players lived for a week at this camp. It was brutal. It was brutal, but we were sharing it together. And what we were doing is we were creating what would become the tradition of the blue and the gold. Garner consolidated, their colors were gold and burgundy. And I think they were the Tigers. And then the Garner Rams were blue and white. So we took the blue from one school and we took the gold from the other school and we created the Trojans. So that first team started the tradition of what this school would become. So, you know, if you go back and you look at all the championships, whether it be football, baseball, basketball, I think the cheerleaders won, it all stemmed that first year in 1968. And if you go in the lobby of our school, you can see the seal. And on that seal it says 1968. So that was just a wonderful experience. And I have used that story numerous times in my history classes. Because, you know, I'm so old I can teach the history that I lived. But it was just a wonderful experience, and I just have nothing but fond memories about it. And a lot of it had to do with the adults that were around at that time. Mr. H. Wayne Bear, unbelievable principal, who empowered the students to do things. And the Constitution we had, I can remember the Constitution. It was, you know, it was fair. You know, it was fair. And I don't remember having a lot of bickering. And it's just a wonderful time to be a high school student to me.
You've been quoted, Coach, as saying you're just a football coach who coaches basketball. Tell us about that statement.
Well, I actually had a lady in church told me I shouldn't have said that. But what I meant was that I started out as an assistant football coach, and I really enjoyed coaching football. And I was fortunate enough to become an assistant basketball coach, first year under J.C. O'Neal, and then for 10 years under James Ferris. But football was always my first love, and you know, I got a chance to coach with Coach Hal Stewart and Coach Nelson Smith, and they were just really fond memories of being on the football staff.
And you were there for the '87 football team.
I was defense coordinator when we won the state championship in '87. But I always thought you could win in basketball at Garner. I thought there was a talent base here, and that basketball could be champions, and I also thought that there were a lot of kids that came through our program here that could play at the next level. So when I accepted the job, that was one of my goals, to win championships, and fortunately enough, I was able to start my varsity career with a guy named Ronnie Williams, who turned out to be a McDonald's All-American and was MVP in the national championship team in 1993 at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So, you know, God has really blessed me in that. So I didn't mean to say that I'm not a basketball coach. I just meant that I enjoyed coaching football too.
Several papers and publications have quoted someone as saying Garner is a tight-knit community. Talk about the relationship between the school and the community at large.
And we got some people in this community that $10 to park and $10 to get in the game is a lot of money. And they're out there to watch you play. And that's what this community is all about. That's what this community is all about.
Well, I grew up at 905 Forest Drive. I think there were 3 houses on the street when Forest Hills was being developed. And it was just a great childhood. I got a chance to grow up. In fact, I was 3 houses down from the mayor here. And just everybody knew your name, just like the song. And we had the Cub Scouts was through the First Baptist Church, and then the Boy Scouts, and all the other civic things that we did as a community. And I think one time I made a comment to one of the civic groups I was speaking that when Hillary Clinton said it takes a village to raise a child, I was a product of that. So I had great memories of growing up in Garner, and fortunately enough, my children also got a chance to grow up in Garner too. And I got to marry Miss Garner in 1973, so I guess I bleed Garner blue and gold.
Okay, we're on course to have a second high school in Garner. How do you think that's going to impact the community and the school at large?
Well, change is inevitable. I do have a political opinion about the name. I don't think that there should be Garner in the name, but that's just my opinion. I don't think we have a South Cary or a South Broughton, so I'd like to see that part of tradition continue, that we have one Garner High School. But change is inevitable. I can remember when Athens Drive was being built back in '78. Everybody thought that Garner would go downhill, and that didn't happen. And then later on, when Southeast Raleigh was being built, our program will go down here. Well, that didn't happen. So a school is made up of the people that run it, and we've been blessed with having a tremendous staff over the last 40 years here at Garner, and a lot of the people that teach here also went to school here, and they came back, and I hope that trend continues. I hope that tradition continues at our school. You
mentioned the impact that Joanne Watkins had on you. You want to talk about that? She was an inspiration, wasn't she?
Oh, she was unbelievable, and she's the main reason that I am a teacher. And one of the neat things about my career is that when she retired, I was able to be given her classroom. And so I'm still in the same class, the last classroom that she taught in room 117. And when she left this sunshine on the wall. It was just the sunshine you can get at any school supply store, and that sunshine's still up there. And fortunately enough, there's a lot of graduates that Miss Watkins influenced that are now part of our school system, like Jill Cottengim, who's continuing some of the same traditions that she started here at this school. And if you go to our auditorium, there's a portrait of Joanne at the entrance to the stage, and I'm real proud of it. I'm proud of it because my daughter painted it, but she's a big part of what Garner's all about. People that have always put their heart and soul into this school, and whether it be the chorus department or the drama department or what we do in auto mechanics or basketball, football, we've been blessed with first-class people to run and teach at this school.
The school has received numerous accolades in recent months and years. How do you account for that? Good
PR. I think we always had a great school, but for some reason, the message didn't get out. There's a lot of factors got involved. I think the Scotty factor, I call it the Scotty factor, certainly had a great impact in it. And then, of course, when you win a state championship in football, and you win an Eastern Regional in football, or you have a Naheem Hines that can run faster than anybody in the country, that helps. And then people take notice of your school, and they begin to see other things that go on in this institution. So it's all about image.
If you are to suggest to parents that they should send their kid to Garner Magnet High School, what would you tell them? You probably hit on some of that already.
Oh, yeah, well, the first thing is, if you live in Wake County, you're blessed with one of the best school systems in the country. And I don't really think it matters what school you go to in the Wake County public school system, you're going to get a good education. We have 3 of the major universities here. Every school in the system has qualified staff. what I would say would be different about Garner is that we still have this sense of community. And we do have a lot of teachers that live in this community, and many like myself that attended this school and decided to come back and be part of this institution as teachers. So, we still got that going for us here in Garner.
Okay, we can't do an interview without talking about the players. You want to talk about some of your players?
Oh, certainly. Just an amazing group of people. I've been blessed over the years with outstanding athletes. I think I've had 4 kids that have played professionally. David West is still playing in the NBA. James Mays is playing overseas. I can't tell you what country he's in. He goes from one country to another. Clint Dees played overseas. Donald Williams played overseas. But this particular group, we don't have anybody that's going to make a living playing basketball. It was just a tight-knit group, to use that term again, Mayor, who just played well together. They were the epitome of what team is all about. I started 2 sophomores, Thomas Allen, who was our leading 3-point shooter, Alex Reed, who looks like a tight end playing basketball, 2 juniors, Jay Swan Smith, who's probably our most athletic player, and he has some of the most spectacular dunks that you ever want to see on a basketball court this year. And then Nick Kuntz, who was I call him my blue-collar guy. Whatever we needed, he did. He had an outstanding championship game against Audrey Kell. I mean, I think he hit 2 threes right away in the first quarter, and that really got us a jump start. And then the guy that sort of held everybody together was a kid named Julius Barnes, and I have a running joke with him. Says the only reason I kept you on the team is because I would have at least one guy on the team that would be shorter than me. So, and he's always going like this. Well, I think I'm taller than you now, Coach. No, you're still short. But he is an example of that leadership doesn't have to be vocal. He's just a quiet leader. He was our point guard. He was our only senior starter. And some nights he would come out and he would shoot the 3 for us. Some nights he would come out and he would have 7, 8, 10 assists. He'd get key steals. He'd make key free throws. But when the game was over, they didn't go to the book to see how many points they had. They went to see how many assists they had. And it wasn't unusual for this group to have 4 guys in double figures. And all they cared about was us winning the game, and they didn't really worry too much about, am I the star tonight? And they were just a pleasure to coach. And then the guys coming off the bench, they started to understand what their roles were. And they understood that, I'm not going to come off the bench and be the great superstar. I might come in and get a steal or take a charge. And then one of the neat things that happened over the years, over the course of the season rather, is that these kids learned how to celebrate. And some of the fondest pictures that were made of these kids jumping up and down on the bench and pulling for one another. So it was just a joy. I don't know what the formula was, but it worked. And they were fun to work with each day, and they were a lot of fun to watch, and they played the game the way it's supposed to be played as a team.
You get to be 30 years old, 40 years old, you come back to that school, you'll see your picture up there. It'll be there forever. But what else is going to be there forever? The memories of what you're about to make. Okay? I want you to play hard. I want you to play with a lot of emotion. Loose balls, we get them all. Don't let the adrenaline of the first 2 minutes get you in foul trouble. Don't get a cheap foul. Just play basketball. Just play basketball.
What does sports teach young people about life itself?
Oh, this is my classroom right here. You can teach so many things about, how to be a productive citizen through an athletic team that you can't teach in a classroom. We talk about how important it is to put priorities straight. We talk about the fact that you need to give thanks for the God-given talents that you were given. One of the neat things that happened is when we were getting ready for the state championship game, our team got a chance to be part of March Madness, and we worked with the adaptive PE kids. That was just a wonderful event. We can use athletics in order to teach these kids about the importance of going on to do things with your life in which you give back to the community. And athletics has proven that those kids that are involved in extracurricular activities, whether it be baseball, football, I don't care, pick a sport, they do better in school, and they generally have less discipline problems, and it's going to up your graduation rate.
In the profession of teaching, what are things that make the job more difficult? You had to encounter some of them, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, well, whatever happens in society is going to happen here. Like for instance, I was teaching my history class today about the changes that took place in the 20s with radio or with motion pictures, the birth of the mass media. So when I first started teaching, everything was done with a pencil and a piece of paper. And then we had to learn how to bubble in a bubble sheet and get a grade, and then all of a sudden everything's on a computer, so you got to deal with the technology. So now in the halls of Garner, we've got people walking around with cell phones. So, where it used to be, you can't be chewing gum in class, now you got to get rid of the cell phone, or now they got earplugs in, they listen to the earplugs. Well, those are all part of technology. But the most difficult thing to deal with has been some of the kids we get who are at risk, and this institution is vital in order to set them on the path so they can become successful. But I still believe in my heart that kids are still kids, and they want to be directed, and they want to be told what to do, and a lot of them they just don't have an advocate. And that's where coaching gives a teacher an opportunity to advocate for kids on their behalf. We have been truly blessed at this school to have great teachers and coaches who listen to the bell, and they have given back to this community, and the reward of their work is the graduates that we've turned out. People that we've turned out that have gone back and done great things for our country.
Would you have ever chosen another profession? Maybe you just wanted to be a teacher, not a coach, but to you they've been together. Would you have done a different profession? Have you ever thought about it?
I came that close after I got married and started looking at my paycheck to go into insurance, but what kept me in it was the coaching. And now what keeps me in it is the teaching. I actually rather teach than coach. I enjoy going to my history class every day. Well, not every day, some days.
3 times a week. Yeah, when you and I went to school, social studies was part of the courses that was on our agenda.
Right.
Why is social studies still important today? You teach that, don't you?
I've taught every topic there is in social studies. I've taught economics, I've taught political science, I've taught law and justice, psychology, sociology, and for the last several years I've been teaching U.S. history.
Because we knew that they were coming. We are going to defeat the Japanese Navy at the Battle of Midway. Now, where is the Battle of Midway? It was in the South Pacific. There's a little group of islands called the Midway Islands. They're near Hawaii. What they were trying to do, Eric, is they were trying to attack Pearl Harbor again. Now, what was between Pearl Harbor and the United States? Nothing. So if they had won this battle, they may have attacked California. Who knows? Guess who wins, Troublefield? We do. We win the war. We win the war because we win.
Of all the courses in a U.S. history class, you can teach everything there is to know about life. You can teach the psychology, the sociology, the past, and I personally believe that by teaching the past, it helps prepare kids for the future. So my history class is a little different. We just I always had tried to make the history class something that they can relate to. In other words, if something's going on in that, for instance, we're talking about the 1860s and the causes of the Civil War, well, you can see similarities from some of the states today that are upset about the federal government doing something, and it's the same argument that was back then. So I try to get the kids to relate to the past, but also it helps them to understand the present. And I just, really enjoy that part of it. And I retired for 6 months and about went crazy. I was walking the halls looking for somebody to teach. So I'm so glad that I got a chance to come back, and I teach half a day, and then I can go home, and I still coach the basketball team. I don't do the football anymore, but the teaching part is just something that I really enjoy doing. And I've always been a big history buff, and I just try to make it fun for the kids in the classroom.
Speak briefly about your opinion or your ideas about the future of Garner, the community of Garner.
Well,
what's it going to be like in 5 years and 10 years down the road?
I don't know. I pray that it will that the next generation will have the same joy that I had. I still say, you can have a building, and we do need to have the building refurbished. There's no doubt, but it's not the brick and the mortar. It's what's in the building, and it all starts with the classroom teachers. And we need, as a country, as a society, we need to put more emphasis on the teaching profession and give this next generation of teachers a pat on the back. But you can't take a pat on the back to the food line. So they need to be compensated so they can stay in this profession. And that's one of my greatest fears, because I see some wonderful teachers coming through here, and a lot of them are just, they're kind of demoralized now. And that's something that we need to address as a country. When you're talking about when I was a student at North Carolina State University, and you look at the School of Education, you had some of the best and brightest. Now we're not attracting those kids to the School of Education. I read the other day where the number of applicants is like in half. So that's my greatest fear. And it's not just this school, it's schools in general. That needs to be addressed.
Speak briefly about the influence that Dean Smith had on your life.
Well, that's another thing, because I grew up an NC State fan now. I pulled for the Russians against the Tar Heels, and that was during the Cold War.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah. Well, anyway, when Donald Williams was coming through, I had the great fortune as a young coach. I got to meet Dean Smith. I got to meet Lefty Driesell. I got to meet Nolan Richardson. I mean, he was being recruited by some of the top programs in the country, and Coach Smith was one of the most gracious people I've ever met, and he was honest in the way he recruited Donald. And he basically he said something that night I'll never forget. He said, "If I come in here and tell you that these people, that you're going to take this guy's place, what about, and if you decide to come to Carolina, are you going to wonder what I'm going to say about you when you get to be a senior and I'm trying to get this new freshman?" So the first thing I got out of him was how loyal he was to his players. And then I got a chance to work his basketball camp, and then I found out, well, guess what? He didn't graduate from Carolina. He graduated from Kansas. So, we get all caught up into the alumni and all the other stuff, but when you really met the man, he was just a fine Christian man. He taught Sunday school at the Baptist church, and then he did all kinds of neat things to help integrate the city of Chapel Hill. And I got to meet Charlie Scott because of him. And my whole family went to NC State. My father went to State, my uncle went to State, everybody went to State. But because of Donald, my son went to Carolina because he was the ball boy. Well, I went back and got my master's from Carolina, and I would have never gotten my master's if it had not been for Donald Williams and my association with Dean Smith. And we run most of his offense. that I learned from going to camp with him. But I learned so much more than just basketball. And the main thing was the idea that, you know, you need to be loyal to your program, and you need to be loyal to the school and loyal to the people that help you succeed in life. And he was that way. I think I just read recently where he gave every one of his former players $200. You know, it's only $200, but think about that gesture and how many kids he touched.
He wanted to feed them, right?
Oh yeah, and he was always big about graduating. Always big about graduating and what they were going to do with their life after basketball. So those are the kind of things that resonated with me.
Can I take this home with me?
No.
You want to make sure everybody sees it?
They don't give me them away.
You have to work your butt off to get one of these, don't you?
You gotta have a little luck too. But yeah, that was special. That's a special.
Let's
truck.
close this out with you holding that.
Sure.
I've enjoyed the interview. Of course, I've enjoyed your friendship all these years too. God bless you.
God bless you. And just like I was born to be a teacher and a coach, you were born to be the mayor of Garner, and you do a great job at it.
Thank you.
I know all the big buzz about the Twitter and all that crap. I don't know. I don't do Twitter.
You gonna editorialize it, ain't you, brother?
Oh, yeah. Yes, my brother.
They're better for you.
No, they're not. They're better when they're soft.
No, Winter Greens are healthier for you.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
Who told you that?
my grandma.
Well, she needs to read some stuff about bananas. I am a banana expert. Shingles coming back
Are there?
because of stress. I'm gonna take a selfie, man.
So, girl, you take selfies?
No.